it's quite a remarkable timing considering that just as they're meeting, the US military, in conjunction with Canada, was holding a large exercise designed to practice defense against Russia, including cruise missile attacks of the kind that Ukraine is experiencing. And so far, military officials haven't said whether they'll be pausing that exercise while the meeting takes place.
US President Donald Trump says there will be severe consequences for Russia if his meeting with President Putin tomorrow fails to make progress on peace in Ukraine. Trump says he hopes the summit, which will take place in Anchorage in Alaska, will act as a stepping stone for further talks.
If the first one goes okay, we'll have a quick second one. I would like to do it almost immediately. And we'll have a quick second meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky and myself if they'd like to have me there.
James Brooks is a reporter for the Alaska Beacon and joins us from Juneau, the state capital of Alaska. He'll be flying to Anchorage for those talks. Good morning.
Good morning, Kate. Am I coming through all right?
Yes, you are indeed. Just set the scene for us. What's the mood like there as you prepare for the summit?
It's a little bit of anticipation on all fronts. Here in Alaska, it's the peak of summer tourist season. It's the peak of fishing season. People are busy, but there's a lot of pro-Ukraine protests planned across the state, including in Anchorage. The place where the talks are scheduled to take place is a military base, so we shouldn't expect scenes like protests immediately outside where they're meeting. It'll be fairly isolated from most people here in Alaska.
I was going to ask you that because obviously with Alaska there is a history with Russia, but is your sense generally that people are much more supportive of the Ukrainian side? I suppose is there any support for the Russian side in this at all?
It's been shifting just in the same way that American politics has been shifting. You used to see quite a bit more support for Ukraine from all people of all political persuasions, and now you're seeing a fall off among Republicans. Just recently, we had an election last year for the U.S. House, our lower national house, and the candidate who ended up winning was very lukewarm in his support of Ukraine, which was quite a change. And even our two state senators, people in the upper house, they have been passionate supporters of Ukraine, but since President Trump was elected, they've really quieted down quite a bit.
And what's the mood there in terms of the fact that this is going to be a historic meeting? It's Donald Trump, it's President Putin. There will be nobody else in the room with them. There is a bit of a history of these types of historic meetings in this particular location.
Yeah, I think Alaskans are looking at this with a bit of bemusement. Alaska, and particularly Anchorage, is equidistant from London, Tokyo, Moscow, and Washington, D.C. So it seems like a natural meeting spot. President Nixon visited the Emperor of Japan in 1971 here. There was a meeting between Ronald Reagan and Pope John Paul II in Fairbanks. They just happened to be flying over Alaska at the same time and realized they could meet. And the red carpet from that meeting ended up in a bar near Fairbanks, and I believe it's still there.
That is a great piece of that's a great piece of history. But as you mentioned, this one will be at a military base, and neither of the presidents will be spending very long there because my understanding is from Donald Trump's side at least that they don't feel that there's anywhere appropriate for them to stay, and that's why this is sort of a one in, one out. They don't want to stay very long.
Yes, and the itinerary that I've received and am expecting is just to fly in and then fly out that same day. It'll be fairly quick, and we'll be waiting to see what happens there.
Well, James, as will all of us. And will you be there? Will you be able to get very close yourself?
That's what I'm hoping for. It's up to the White House right now. I put in my request for press credentials, and it's up to them. And it's quite a remarkable timing considering that just as they're meeting, the U.S. military, in conjunction with Canada, was holding a large exercise designed to practice defense against Russia, including cruise missile attacks of the kind that Ukraine is experiencing. And so far, military officials haven't said whether they'll be pausing that exercise while the meeting takes place.
Well, that would be quite some timing, James, as you say. We'll keep our fingers crossed for you getting your credentials there for that meeting. That's James Brooks, reporter for the Alaska Beacon, joining us from Alaska.
Mr. President, How were your calls this morning with European leaders, and was it your call not to invite President Zelensky to your meeting with Putin?
No, just the opposite. No. We had a very good call. He was on the call. President Zelensky was on the call. I would rate it a 10, very, very friendly. But we have a real problem there. They're way over budget. No, it was always going to be I was going to meet with President Putin, and then after that, I'm going to call the leaders and President Zelensky. I'm going to call President Zelensky, and then I'll call, probably in that order, the leaders. There's a very good chance that we're going to have a second meeting, which will be more productive than the first, because the first is I'm going to find out where we are and what we're doing. Again, this is Biden's war. This isn't my war. He got us into this thing, and it should have never happened. This war would have never happened if I were president. But it is what it is, and I'm here to fix it, and I'm here to stop 6,000, 7,000 people last week. 7,213 people last week were killed, mostly soldiers. But missiles being lobbed into towns don't exactly help either, but mostly soldiers, and Ukrainian and Russian. They're not American soldiers, but if we can save a lot of lives, it would be a great thing. I've stopped 5 wars in the last 6 months, and on top of that, we wiped out the nuclear capability of Iran, obliterated it. It's turned out to be a correct word, by the way, because some of the press said, well, maybe it wasn't obliteration. It was obliteration. And we're going to meet with, I would say, the second meeting. If the first one goes okay, we'll have a quick second one. I would like to do it almost immediately, and we'll have a quick second meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky and myself, if they'd like to have me there. And that would be a meeting where maybe it could be absolutely work. But the first meeting will not work that out. Certain great things can be gained in the first. It's going to be a very important meeting. But it's setting the table for the second meeting. I think the second meeting, if the second meeting takes place, now there may be no second meeting, because if I feel that it's not appropriate to have it because I didn't get the answers that we have to have, then we're not going to have a second meeting.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And what a shame that is. But that was when I first realized that these people actually want to have open borders. Please.
Will Russia face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
there will be
be?
consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences, yes.